Hello YouTube family, Carl Baldessar back with another classic rock riff review, and for today's episode we're going to do the year 1976, and I'm going to go through 10 great classic guitar riffs from the year. We're going to do it by date of release during the year, and I'm looking forward to this. We're going to go down memory lane. I was about 16 years old at the time, and boy, all this music really made a great impression on me. So before I begin, we'd love to actually try to double our subscribers. So if every subscriber out there is digging this channel, go ahead and find a friend and ask them to subscribe. Let's see if we can break through 20,000. And I want to give a really big shout out to one of my subscribers. His name is Rob Shaw, and he answered the call in terms of helping write this script. In fact, when I put out on my 1975 greatest riffs, I asked for you to submit me your favorite riffs from any year, and Rob Shaw stood up to the plate and he sent me a dozen great riffs from 1976, and he nailed it. These are some really great riffs. So I took about 80% of the ones he suggested, and boom, we have this episode. So here's a picture of Rob Shaw. Thank you, Rob. And if you guys want to help me write a script for another year, please submit about 12 good riffs from the year, and I'll take a look at it, and I'll feature you on my next episode. All right, let's go.
This is Casey Kasem in Hollywood, and right now, I'm about to play a montage of the #1 songs of 1976, starting with the first week of January.
Okay, for riff number 1, released on the 6th of January, 1976, it's none other than Peter Frampton, and the song is called It's a Plain Shame. Now, I'm cheating a little bit because it was originally released on his solo album called The Winds of Change back in '72. But the album, the live album that he released in 1976, which went multi-platinum and really took the US market by storm, was called Frampton Comes Alive. And this song was featured on the album along with a bunch of other great hits that he had. But I always loved this guitar riff, so let me play it for you. It's called It's a Plain Shame. Yeah, I love that opening guitar riff. It's so cool, and it's a lot of fun to play. And a couple little details when I've gone back and I've listened to it, I've noticed. First off, on the power chords at the intro, he really doesn't put a break between them, so it's pretty fluid when he does that. But the part I love the most is the kind of power chord slide that he does 3 times. It goes like this. I mean, that is just so much fun to play. It has a little bit of a Page kind of feel to it too, doesn't it? And then he has the little kind of Chuck Berry sort of riffs, and he does the same thing on the verse riff, which I kind of like. It's these little half-step slides, very Chuck Berry. So. Yeah, just a good old rock and roll song. It's a Plain Shame by Peter Frampton.
Top 40. Quick review of the year's biggest sellers.
Okay, for riff number 2, we're going to go to the 31st of March, 1976, and Led Zeppelin released its 7th album titled Presence. And this is a jaunty, rockin' little piece called Hot's On For Nowhere. Some really cool kind of grooving riffs on this one. Let's check it out. Okay, so the main figure goes like this. So the main riff on this is actually kind of fussy to play, but once you get it, it's a lot of fun. But you have this movement in thirds, major third, minor third, and you got this individual line. And you got the cross pick where you have to go to the octave E. Right? That's very cool. And then the other thing that he's doing is he's varying the slidey parts up here at the top when you're on the E chord. He does that one, which is this half-step slide from G, G sharp to E. And then other times he'll go a whole step slide. F sharp, G sharp, E. Right? So I'm going to put them back to back for you so you can check it out. Here we go. Did you catch the difference there? Yeah, very cool. And it's such a fun groove. Once you get it going and get it under your fingers, it's just a real kind of jaunty, bouncy sort of, rhythm to play. I love it. And to help with the sound, I'm actually on this one, I'm using Jimmy Page's style of pick. I'm using the Hairco Flex 75. I normally use like a 1.0 millimeter gauge, but on this one you got to have that little springy sound with that pick. The other variation that he's doing on the main riff is getting into these sixth intervals, and Jimmy Page loves intervals of a sixth, major and minor, and he adds it to the riff here, so check it out. So we go from this version, right, and there we've got the thirds. Then he'll actually come back later in the song and he'll do it in sixths. So we got... And what's really kind of fussy about that is the way he handles the kind of turnaround at the end. So you've got the major sixth, minor sixth. So he goes minor, major, real quick. It's really cool to play once you get it, but it's a little tricky. You really get your money's worth on riffs on this song because you get a lot of variations, and I love this one where he's breaking into this single line after he does the main riff. Check it out. Love that bouncy line, and that line actually is a quote of what's going to be at the end of this sort of longer version of that line, and it goes like this to end the song. Hot's on for nowhere. If you've been following my channel for a while, you'll know that I'm a big Led Zeppelin fan. So much so that I have my own band called The Soul of Zeppelin. And our take on it's pretty cool because we're actually improvising our way through the music, just like Led Zeppelin did, because they never imitated themselves, so why should we? And you can check out some live footage of my band, The Soul of Zeppelin, playing not only on this channel, but you can head over to thesoulofzeppelin.com for more information. Good. All right, do we want to sell t-shirts? You can just, if you want to plug t-shirts, you can. I've got a band called The Soul of Zeppelin, and we got some really great t-shirts for you. You can find them at carlbaldessarmusic.com. Go to the store. You can pick from 2 styles. They're all custom made. carlbaldessarmusic.com.
We're going to play all the #1 songs of 1976.
Okay, for riff number 3, we're going to follow up Jimmy Page's riff with a riff from Jeff Beck. And in May of 1976, he released a great album called Wired, and the opening track was called Lead Boots. Fantastic world that Jeff Beck creates with the guitar. Let's take a look at some of the riffs on the song Lead Boots. The track starts off with these 3 beautiful chords, their 11th chords, and their voice like this. And then you get the opening figure, which is so funkalicious. Check it out. And then he follows it up with these beautiful pentatonic sort of runs. And he takes it down an octave. I love how he uses the vibrato bar on this part as well. And he has this really cool technique. I actually saw Adrian Belew do it, where you actually pull and let the vibrato bar bounce, so you get this sound. You know, isn't that cool? And then things get really nutty when they move into this kind of 7/8 phrase where he's doing these octaves. It's insane, man. And then on the 4th one, live, I love it. He does these perfect fourths. It gives me kind of a Richie flavor where he's going. Lead Boots by Jeff Beck. Oh my goodness.
How many of these number one songs can you identify?
For riff number 4, we're going to go to the 3rd of May, 1976, and to the band Aerosmith on their album Rocks. They had a hit song called Last Child. It's a really, really cool grooving song. It has a really unique intro to it too, this cool arpeggio on guitar. So let's take a look at that opening arpeggio. Yeah, very cool little arpeggio, isn't that, for the beginning of the song? But let's now hop into the really grooving riff. And what I like about that riff is just so simple, but it's so grooving. What I love live is they do this little pull off in these perfect fourths, and it's really gutty when they do that. Check this out. That is so cool, isn't it? I want to shout out actually Brad Whittiford, who's sort of overshadowed by Joe Perry, but he wrote this song and he's a really, really fine guitar player. In fact, if you watch him play live and you just check it out on YouTube, look at how quiet his hands are, man. He gets so much power from very little movement in his hands. Super clean, meticulous player. Brad Whittiford, man, killer riff. And the other thing I need to mention is that during the studio version, they played this a half step down on the guitar, but in the live version, they're in standard tuning, so I'm in standard tuning. So in typical Aerosmith fashion, you don't have just one great guitar riff in this song, you've got a few. And I love the pre-chorus riff with the open A. It goes like this. Isn't that such a cool riff, man? The way they walk down the line with an open A the whole way. It's so cool, man. And of course, we get the great dual guitar parts on the chorus, which are kind of based around a D to an A chord. So you got the Home Sweet Home lyric. So you got the... And the guitars are doing the... Yeah, the band Aerosmith and the song Last Child.
How many of these number one songs of 1976 can you identify?
Riff number 5, we go back to England for the great Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. They released their second album called Rainbow Rising on the 17th of May, 1976. It's one of my favorite albums. It sounds so cool. And this track opened up the second side, and it had one of the greatest drum intros of any song in rock and roll history by Cozy Powell. It also had the longest pick rake ever on guitar. I think it lasts 12 seconds. But let's take a look at this great riff for the song Stargazer. Oh my goodness, that's a mighty handful. Thank you, Ritchie Blackmore. This riff is so articulated beautifully, right? And you also have the iconic pairing of the incomparable Ronnie James Dio on vocals with Ritchie Blackmore's guitar. And Ronnie James Dio, man, rest in peace, brother. So the main lick of it is really simple. It's a chromatic walk up from D with the octave E. So you've got the... And the little quick turn tag he does, it's kind of cool because he's doing not a pull off, he's doing sort of just a release off kind of feeling here. So you have this kind of ghosting. So you have this ghosting of the D. You're not doing that. You're doing, right? It's very subtle, but it's really important to get that right. And then we have a very classic Ritchie Blackmore run to turn everything around, and it goes like this. Right, and you get 2 open A's on that, so you have to keep track of that. And he has the flanged line that answers it. And then back chromatically down. It's just beautifully constructed. Such an amazing riff, man. Stargazer.
What's still to come in the second half of our countdown of the year's biggest hits?
All right, for riff number 6, we're going to the very well-populated guitar band called Blue Öyster Cult. Actually, the first rock band to have the umlaut in the letters above their name, but I digress. They had a fabulous album that was called Agents of Fortune, probably their most popular, and it was released on the 21st of May in 1976. It had the great track The Reaper, but I'm actually going to focus on this riff, which is called E.T.I. It's so cool, and I'm using this really neat filter to kind of get the sound that they had, but let's check it out. That is such a cool riff. Oh my gosh, I love that. And what's really cool, I think one of the most unusual parts of it is the way they have this A chord voice. So you've got this open E chord to start with the, and I'll turn the vibe off there, but you've got the E chord to start with the power chord. And then, is that cool? Right? You got the A, C sharp, the E, open E, C sharp, A. That's a really cool voicing for this. Man, that feels so good when you play it to get that A chord voiced that way. And the little variation that they do in the song of that riff is that they give you this. Yeah, so they give you those little sort of stabby chords, which are pretty cool, and that's where the guitar solo comes in. So, like the variation as well.
I want more of you. So much more.
All right, I'm going to throw in a little bonus riff here from Blue Öyster Cult. I can't really get out of 1976 and not do something from The Reaper. I will not do the main riff, Thou Shalt Not Play, but I do like the actual interlude part, which is really cool, and they've got this 5 versus 6 figure in this rhythm that's called a tricello, so it's very triplety sounding. So the part I'm going to play is the interlude section, and it starts off with these arpeggios that we all know, the little F minor triad, and then the G7 triad with the G7 over the F, those two. And they are arpeggiated in an interesting rhythm, and they count it out in a grouping of 5 on the F minor and 6 on the G7. So it kind of goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so that's a really, really cool thing. But what I love is the massive, beautiful rhythm gesture that happens after that. All right, so the great interlude on The Reaper that I love after those beautiful little arpeggios is this really, really gutty gesture on the low end. It kind of has a little Beethoven kind of vibe to it because it's just sort of clenched fist sort of thing. And it's in what we call a tricello rhythm, which is Spanish for triplet. So let me play it for you and then we'll count it real quick. And the tricello rhythm is really kind of in groups of 3. So I'm kind of counting it like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So we have a half note there. And then it repeats. So the 2 lines, which are basically revolving around an F minor and a G major with a moment with a momentary passage to an A flat diminished, but we kind of like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And it really has a beautiful flow. I love the symmetry of the line, even though that the first arpeggio is kind of this minor, and then the second one is this major. But I love the endings and how it kind of loops back on itself. So when we have the F minor arpeggio, we go to the ninth of the F minor, the G, and we have a whole step down back to the F. And the way we get up to that G, which is really important because there's a wide leap here, and that move, A flat to G, is a major seventh wide leap, and then they turn back down to the F. And why that's important? Because the way it's contrasted in the second half of the Tresello line, which starts on G. So that wide leap is a tritone, an augmented fourth. And it resolves back to G. And so you've got those two beautiful endings that go together, and it just makes it this very circular pattern. So there's my tip of the cap for all you Blue Oyster Cult fans.
Top 40.
Quick review of the year's biggest sellers.
And for riff number 7, we're going to stay right here in the United States with the band Boston, who had their really historic debut release. Album title, Boston, of course. And Tom Scholz and Bradley Delp, the lead singer and the founding guitar player, wrote this song, and it truly is its name. It is Smokin'. Let's check this riff out. And then we have the really cool chorus part, which goes like this. Yeah, very cool little chorus on that as well. This whole thing is just a barn burner, so brace yourself, man. You've got to just lock and load and go.
We're going to play all the #1 songs of 1976. Here they are.
All right, on to riff number 8. We have another band that's named after a city, and this band is called Kansas, the great progressive rock band Kansas, and they had a really, really great album that was released on the 23rd November 1976. It was called Left Overture, very funny title. And they had many great tracks on that one, but they have the really iconic song called Carry On My Wayward Son that had several really cool guitar riffs. So let's take a look at the first opening riff of the song. It's killer. All right, so riff number 2 goes like this. Really cool. It's kind of a tricky riff to get under your fingers, but it's so cool. And then when they finish it off, they do the walk up into the verse, with the harmony guitar. Yeah, excellent, excellent riffs in this song. And what's better than 2 riffs from Kansas? How about 3 riffs in the same song? Check this one out. Riff number 3 from the song. I could keep going. There's so many riffs in this song. But the great Kansas and Carry On My Wayward Son comes in at number 8 on our classic rock riff review of 1976. Speaking of progressive rock, that's a genre that I spent a lot of years in with my band Syzygy and also with my band Baldassar. You should go check out my album on my website, carlbaldessarmusic.com. The album's called Collinwood Yards. There's a ton of progressive rock on that album. Recorded it at Abbey Road Studios. It was fantastic. One piece in particular I'm thinking of right now that you should listen to is called The Letter. Check it out at carlbaldessarmusic.com.
Top 40.
If you've been with us through the whole countdown, you've probably identified most of them.
For riff number 9, the penultimate riff on my list of the greatest rock riffs from 1976, we go to the band The Eagles. And on December 8th, 1976, they released their iconic album, Hotel California. And this riff in particular, I'm really excited because I never really had a chance to sit down and learn it. It is so incredible, and Joe Walsh is just a genius on the guitar. And this song is Life in the Fast Lane. Let's take a look at the riff. So this is such a quintessential Joe Walsh feel thing. It's really, really hard to copy all of his little micro-tuning nuances and bends. But the one thing that's really interesting when I watch him actually play it, the way he's bending the G note, he's actually bending up. You see? Isn't that really expressive that way versus pulling it down? Yeah, and the other part of this thing that he does, which is almost impossible to really get every little micro feel that he's got going, is the way he's dragging down from the B to the A and then to the G, kind of a micro bend up. So that wasn't too bad, right? Actually, that wasn't not bad at all. But that, it's really expressive. So that's the hardest part of the riff, is to actually imitate that, man. Joe Walsh he is the GOAT, man. He's just way up there.
On our countdown of the 100 biggest hits of 1976, you just heard a recap of all the #1 songs of the past 12 months. I'm Casey Kasem.
Last but not least, we have riff number 10, and we go all the way back to England for the great British band called Queen. And they had their epic release of the album A Day at the Races. That was released on the 10th of December, 1976. And this is just a great rock and roll riff, and Brian May just laid this track out. Let's take a look at the riff for Tie Your Mother Down. Tie Your Mother Down, what a killer riff. And I was actually watching Brian May play this live just to make sure I was getting kind of the fingering, and there was something really unusual when he does the G, D, C, G chord, and I'm hearing this. But he's got this amazing articulation, and I'm thinking, what is he doing? I started to try to upstroke it. And then I watched him, and there's this really cool thing going on. Did you catch it while I was playing it? Check it out. Did you see that? He's actually doing a flamenco rake on those chords. And then I went and did some research on the song, and actually he wrote this on the Spanish guitar and brought it to the band on the Spanish guitar. So I go, snap, man, that's exactly what he's doing. He had the flamenco rake, and it goes. How cool is that, man? And there you have it, riff number 10 from the band Queen, and that wraps up our classic rock riff review for the year 1976. It was a lot of fun to learn all these riffs. I'm sure I've left some out that you would love to hear. Feel free to comment and suggest some riffs, and maybe we'll come back and do episode number 2 for the year 1976. Thank you very much. Please like and subscribe. And in fact, we'd love to actually try to double our subscribers. So if every subscriber out there is digging this channel, Go ahead and find a friend and ask them to subscribe. Let's see if we can break through 20,000. And thanks again to Rob Shaw, who helped submit a bunch of these riffs. Saved me a lot of research time, and he really nailed it. And you could actually be the next one to send me some great riffs that I'll cover and mention you as well. I'm Carl Baldessar, and we'll see you again. And we have the great Joel Walsh line from Life in the Fast Lane. It was released on the 8th of... it was going so good. Oh, it's going so good, Bill. Let's take a chance and look at what we're looking like now, because it wasn't perfect. Let's do this again. Let's just do it all again. Now, how we doing?
Come on, you're always looking good. What's that from?
I don't know. It's from a very dark recess of my mind. My interior thought life is frightening. All right, let's move on. No, we can't do that. We can't do that.
Do you need to hear it more?
No,
No.
no,
No.
no. I need to keep chewing. I need to keep chewing, Billy. No, 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 no.
Second. Three Stooges. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.